Welcome to the lovely Riverside. The river's just over there, but let's start off this video with today's topic. Earlier today, I went shopping, and something really struck out to me when I was doing this shopping, right? So you do all your shopping, you go to the till or the checkout, and you go to pay. And as soon as you go to pay, little card, pop it on, right? But then I start to think about this. This shopping's expensive, right? Let's say it's over £100, £100. That's a lot of money. And it's just tapped away in a second. Now, in the past year or so, I've bought a lot of stuff by card, like a lot of us have now, you know. I bought a brand new car by card. I bought the insurance for that car by card. It's all bank transfer, right? Bank transfer and card. And you get to thinking about this, and it's like, we are in a new era. Now, I've had a few unfortunate issues with banking in the recent years. One of them actually occurred the other night, to the point where I went to get some money out of my account. This was at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was in my city centre, so quite a way away from home. I went to get some money out of my bank. I'd spent all my money, but I obviously have a savings account, so basically the natural will is to transfer some money over. Now, for me, there's nothing wrong with this. That's how I deal with my money. I have money in stocks, I have money in savings accounts, and I have money over in my spending account. I like to keep more in my saving account than my spending account. So it's really quite simple, you know. You take that money, you put it into your spending account. There shouldn't be a problem with that. But I couldn't do it. So I had no money. Now let's assume that I actually needed money. What do? I'm trying to get a taxi home, let's say. I wasn't, but let's just say I am, right? I'm finished. Fortunately, I had cash. I needed to buy a drink. It was a scorching hot night despite being the middle of the night. So I was able to get some water from a local shop with the cash that I had. But this whole tap card thing, it presents two interesting issues. So one is, like I just said, the functionality of it, but more so what this means for our spending habits in terms of business. Now, as you will all know, I'm quite big into business. I'm a big fan of running businesses, and I believe running businesses can be a successful thing to do. But when I suppose you've got that sort of business mind, you begin to question why big companies are doing what they're doing. 99% of the time it is because of money, but then you start to think about that subjectively, right? So what does that mean in the context of this issue? Well, there's an argument to be made for the fact that it creates more control, because banks can essentially, you know, stop your account being able to make payments. But let's talk about that on a business level. So there's two issues that I want to talk about here. The first one is just spending on your account, and the second one is credit cards and interest. Let's start off by talking about spending on your main account. For argument's sake, let's say that my net worth is around £10,000. Let's just say that for an example, right? Now, 10 grand in cash is a hefty amount. Let's say it's all in £10 or £20 notes. You're going to notice that money straight away. But when it's in card, there is no money. It's figures on a screen. It's basically as good as nothing. Now let's assume that I've got my little 10 grand in a safe, right? I need to go to the shops. I need to take that money out. A little bit of it. I need to buy a new car. I need to take that money out. I can physically track what I'm spending. And you see the quantities fluctuate up and down subsequently. With all of this online banking though, to be honest, that's really not the case. And if anything, we see people spend more because they do not realise that they're spending, if you will. Now, of course, we know, right? If I drain my bank account, that's my money gone. But that's a lot easier to do than it would be if we were dealing cash. I've already outlined it on video, but I personally do not drink alcohol. But I've been on nights out, right? Whether it's to a pub with a friend or someone like that. And you see it, you know? Someone will buy a drink, let's say a drink costs £5–10. Then they buy the next one, and the next one, the next one. Do this in cash, and you'll quickly realise that you started off with maybe £5 or £10 notes. Do it by card, well, you won't even notice. So one consequence is that you're more likely to spend. Now, I think it's needless to say how that directly impacts on your spending habits, on your financial prosperity. But another thing to consider is it puts more power in the hands of these banks. Now, of course, it's not the case for everybody, and some people can still track their spending. But let's talk about the people who we may consider to be, well, financial idiots. You know, if they spend all their money, the rent doesn't go away, the monthly payment for the phone doesn't go away, the monthly payment for the this and the that, it all still needs paying. So you've got basically only a couple of choices. Now, ideally the answer is to get better at managing your money, but let's say you don't do that. Well, then there's handy features in banks, right, where you can basically borrow money, whether it's things like, say, overdrafts or more traditional loans or mortgages. You can buy things that you can't realistically pay for. And then, of course, we get into my earlier point of credit cards. Now, the concept of a credit card is something basic and simple, and something that I think we all understand. The concept of a credit card is it's something that allows us to buy things that we can't necessarily afford right now. But of course, at what cost? So let's say we have a credit card, right, and we draw out £100 from our credit card every month. On this credit card, we have a 10% interest rate, so we basically have to pay back £110 on the deadline. Now, in this scenario, the £10 example is 100% profit for that company, the card provider or whoever it is, the bank. And I'm not actually against that, right? This company has to risk 100% of their capital, or £100 of their capital. They will want to make a profit on that because of the risk. Now, whether 10% or £10 is a fair rate for a credit card is not what I'm trying to discuss. It's an example, right? It's just an example. The bank makes a profit on our credit cards and on money that we borrow from them. They risk their capital, and as a consequence, we pay extra because of that. So let's get back on how this intertwines with card tap culture. You tap your card, you spend an awful lot of money, right? And you don't realise it's all going. I think all of us have done that at some point. You just don't realise how much you've spent. Now, for the likes of most sensible people who are financially responsible, we have a rough idea. Let's say, for example, you go out for a meal. Well, you know it might cost £20, £30, £40, whatever. You've got a rough idea. Drinks might cost an extra £10, £15, £20, whatever. Just an example, like I say, but because of that, we kind of understand it. But if we didn't have that financial understanding or the sensible nature around finance, that may not be the case. From there, we are offered financial products which incentivize more and more spending, which essentially leads to us being in a situation where we want to take out debt. Why wait months to have that nice thing when you can have it right now? And that's where things like credit and credit cards come in. Now, if you pay these off relatively quickly, it's not that bad. It can actually be a win-win situation. You get something that you want immediately, and yes, you may have to pay a little bit extra back, but overall, it's not too bad of a deal, or it doesn't have to be too bad of a deal. But the longer you let that debt accrue, the larger a percentage of interest you're going to be paying back. This can quickly add up to the point where you're in an awful lot of debt. And that's not good, but it's another way that businesses encourage spending. You know, it's not just banks, it's big companies that do this too as well. You know, it's very expensive, let's say, to buy a new car. But guess what? You can finance it, whether that be some sort of a hire plan, some sort of a lease agreement. Obviously, it depends on what you're buying, or even a mobile phone contract. But you pay the extra for the luxury. And it's another way that big businesses make an awful lot of money. What is the message, and how do we get past this? Well, that's a big, complicated question to ask. But you know what? I really don't think the solution is as hard as many might like to think. It starts with the super simple things, right? What are you spending? Where are you spending? How much do you spend a month? Can you afford that? Do you have savings? What is your debt? What is your interest rates on your debt? Stuff like that. Knowing where your money is and what your money's doing on a deep level will help you to manage it better, meaning that other companies and third parties won't step in charging you extortionate rates for things that you don't need. Now, you could argue getting this mindset is quite difficult because you have to go against both what culture tells you and what you really want to do, right? Who wants to wait 6 years until they can afford that new car? But if we don't do that, that might make us significantly poorer in the long run. Because now we've got to pay that debt off for 7 years, and it's also 30% more than the actual standout price. You know, I'm definitely in agreement with anyone that says that we live in a money culture, but to say that it's created in a way that's incentivized to help us isn't the case. It's a money culture for the rich, and they raise that from the poor, the average, us. If you control your money better, other people won't have to. If other people don't have to, they can't necessarily charge you for services that you don't need, right? You can't be charged for something that you don't buy, and you won't buy something that you don't want or need. Now, the big issue here, which is always prevalent, especially nowadays, is the idea of the tap card and buy. Because you do see this, and I just said it before, right? I've bought things for over £1,000, which is not, by anyone's measure, or shouldn't be by anyone's measure, an insignificant value. That's a lot of money, right? I'm not saying it's like be all and end all, but it's not a small amount to me, at least. I've bought stuff for over £1,000 and paid card. You don't even notice that it's going. When you check your bank balance, it's gone. Now, for me, I do see myself as financially responsible, right? The stuff that I buy for over £1,000, I know I'm buying it, I account for it, I budget for it. But for most people, and I understand it because it is a natural human instinct, right? You want it now. As long as that card's still tapping, most people are still spending. Maybe let's have a think about this message, this idea, and how that's affecting us personally and, of course, financially. Well, that's it for this topic. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you soon. Goodbye for this one. See ya.